All right, here we are at 489 Dufferin, and we were discussing the exterior project. It's comprehensive. It's everything that we see outside, which is wood, including the windows. The storm windows that we can remove, we're going to remove and repaint them on both sides. There's one on that side that I identified as not being able to be removed, so I'm gonna have a good look at that before I leave, and I'll count those out. We're gonna need the crane here. I think that's the safest bet and the best bet, because we get to do things comprehensively by scraping everything safely and really well before we put the paint on, the new paint. It's gonna be a bit of a change of color. Excuse me. Pardon me. And it's gonna be a little bit off. I'm not sure what the color is, but we'll have a look at that. But being that the Rejuvenate goes on in 10 coats, it should cover if it's something similar. It's comprehensive in the fact that all the cracks that you can see along, we're going to fill all those gaps wherever it is appropriate. For example, here we would never fill the gaps, but since it's already painted, we'll have to continue. But when you fill the gaps here, things start swelling and it becomes problematic. But things like this, we're gonna scrape this entire, every square inch of this house with our team in one shot. I think for a couple of days, I think that's my sense of it right now. There's some things like this, and it's kind of suspiciously dubious. Paint's falling, it's peeling off, and I don't like it when I see things like that. So we'll know better once we get up there to have a look at that. And with cracks in the middle, we'll seal all of that. There's a piece on this side that has a screen over top of it. We'll just reseal all that in so that insects and rodents and birds can't move into the house. There is this piece right under here that is rotten. It looks it. And we suspect that it is, so we'll have a good look at that. If that has to be replaced, then that's something somebody else would have to address before we would paint it, but it would be in the quote that we would come back and paint it. This tree has to be trimmed a little bit. We discussed that so we can access this. All of these pods, they're called pods, they have to be addressed, so we will use some type of a sealant. We like to use oil sealants for this because the oil sealant and primer literally is the best thing for organic material. And then, of course, having put that on, it allows for us to put latex base paints on top of that. So that's in a lot of places, actually, on this side, this stuff too. So not only would we scrape that, we would sand this, because once you paint this, the paint doesn't penetrate that, so it's a real big mess. So we have to really tackle that well. And on the project like this that has that, oh, okay, see you. Okay, great, thanks. Okay, bye-bye. And then we would use new blades and new scrapers to remove that effectively. Then all of this, of course, over here and on top over there needs to be addressed. And wherever it is, we would tackle that. All the way up underneath the soffit, where it is there. And again, using the elastomeric sealants that elongates to 30%, that's the only product we would use for any of the cracks anywhere. And we don't just apply it on the surface, we literally fill that gap. So it'll never fail again. Well, never. You know, it shouldn't, unless the wood shrinks fantastically to a minuscule size, then it would crack. But under normal circumstances, it'll never crack again. And that's why we use that. Here, we didn't have a look at this really, but I'm going to open that for a sec. Oh, there's a rock here. Let me see. We can access that. Yeah, there's access there. And we'd remove these vines that we see here. Things like this that are just sitting there, we would just scrape that all off and fill those gaps. So the second day would be that. We would scrape it all down and then fill. The next day would be filling of all the cracks. Things like this. Machine sanding so the paint adheres better. And then let's go, and this back, the original stucco structure, which is this, has been painted in a semi-gloss. As I mentioned, you could do whatever you want, but it is our experience that dictates that matte finishes last better on these surfaces. I'm going to pause it for a moment. And then under here, we have all of this. We can fill that crack, throw a few nails in. This moved out when I pulled on it, so we put some finishing nails in there and finish that off after it's all been scraped and glued. Or glued and then filled. And then under here, of course, you can see in the past it's been painted, but it could have used another coat here. It's not enough. You can see it in this triangle right here and this rectangle here. It's not done. And here too, you can see through this still. So we won't do that to you. A few things like this greenery here is indicative of there's too much water sitting here. It's not drying fast enough. So this, again, I'm a huge fan of nature, but this is not helping your house, this shrub here. And again, on top of here, all of that needs to be scraped. The bottom part, about 5-6 shingles down, is really bad. And then everything else will be addressed as well. These windows, I'll have a look at those. Well, let's have a look. I'm sorry I'm stepping in your garden here. Let's see. Yeah, see, this is all sealed in. If you have a good look at yourself, and so is this one. But there's an upside again, that the window is in good condition. But to remove that, you might have to consult with a window company. I could recommend Provincial Glass. They might be able to come and have a look at that and see if that's removable. I'm always suspicious as to why people sealed all that in, and it definitely is. So please have a look at that. As it sits, I'm going to quote it that we're not removing the window and we're going to paint the outside. I know you wanted it done, but unless somebody comes and removes all that, a window company would know that better. Okay, so there's that, but everything else makes sense. We didn't really look at this dormer here. Yeah, it needs a lot of work as well. And then over here, this one's also sealed in. Yeah, it's actually sealed in quite a bit. You can see there's a crack there where the sealant wasn't applied heavily enough. And so is that. Yeah, it's all sealed in. Oh, shoot. And we remove all the downspouts so we can scrape properly behind there. We clean things like on top of here. See, it's all green. We wouldn't leave it like that. We have special products that we use for exteriors that removes it effectively. And things like this. We might be able to put a plate underneath that so it stops failing like that. That'll be very helpful. And again, having a look at this, and it's also sealed in. Okay, well, unfortunately, sometimes it is what it is. If you have to look at it, please do, so that we're on the same page. And we already discussed it briefly. And so is this one. It's also sealed in. All right, well, listen, thank you both. It was really wonderful to have met you both. And I'll get you, you've seen the quote now, and you see what we see, and it's comprehensive. And as I mentioned, there's no deposit. We pay for absolutely everything. Then at the end, when you're thrilled, everybody's always thrilled. And we have a great reputation. You can read our reviews and see what people say about us. It's always a really wonderful thing. So we're very fortunate to have a fantastic team that takes this seriously, because to us, this is how we feed our families, and this is how we build our futures. And you entrust us to raise the value of your property so that someday when you want to sell it, it's worth more than what it is worth today. And we thank you for considering us. Thank you so much. You can always call me if you have any questions. Merci beaucoup.